On June 1st of 2018, an off-duty firefighter spotted the body of an infant floating 100 feet off the Boynton Beach Inlet in Florida. The firefighter initially mistook the female baby for a doll. Investigators searched records of every child born in Palm Beach and Broward counties, but were unable to find any information to help the case. Investigators released an image rendered by artists of how the baby might have looked at birth, in the hope that someone may come forward with a lead. A $10,000 reward was offered for any information leading to an arrest in the case, but none of the tips police received were helpful. Having been found that month, the infant was named Baby June by investigators. With them unable to identify her, the case was handed over to the Cold Case Squad. Recently, in 2022, the Crime Lab and Cold Case team were able to eventually identify the father of the baby girl through a DNA match. Julie Sikorsky, supervisor of the office's forensic biology unit, said the sheriff's office uploaded the newborn's DNA onto a public database, Family Tree DNA. They were able to find a close relative. "We rebuilt the family tree, identified close relatives, and then established the link to our suspect," Sikorsky said. After identifying the father, investigators tracked him down and interviewed him. He said that he had a girlfriend at the time that the baby was found. She had told him she was pregnant, but that she had taken care of it. He claimed he knew nothing about the baby and believed she had an abortion. Detectives were able to get their hands on a covert DNA sample of the father's former girlfriend, a piece of garbage she had discarded. They were then able to use this to confirm that she was the mother of the newborn baby. She is 29-year-old Araya Singh. Police learned that Singh had been at the inlet on May 30th of 2018, 48 hours before the baby was found in the water nearby. They also found that she had searched for and read news articles about the baby's discovery. When questioned, Singh told investigators she did not know she was pregnant until she gave birth on May 30th of 2018, and that she was not sure if the baby was alive or not at the time. After interviewing Singh, as well as several of her friends and family members, they determined that she was solely responsible for the baby ending up in the Boynton Beach Inlet. On December 15th of 2022, the Palm Beach County Police announced that they arrested Araya Singh. Palm Beach County Sheriff Rick Bradshaw told the news conference, "It's a whole new world as far as technology is concerned. We had a lot of people at the beginning say, 'You got nothing. You'll be lucky if you ever find anybody in this.'" Bradshaw praised his officers, saying that while they are tough, this particular case had taken an emotional toll on them all. "The men and women of law enforcement always think they are tough and that they have seen it all. But I guarantee you, when you see a newborn infant floating in the ocean like somebody had discarded it like a piece of trash, it tugs at your heart," he said. 60-year-old Betty Rolf lived in Appleton, Wisconsin in 1988. She was described as a loving mother and grandmother who always cared about people. She was an avid baker, and her homemade bread, rolls, pies, and noodles were the envy of the neighborhood. At about 6 a.m. on November 6th of 1988, amidst a raging blizzard, Betty made the trek to her job at the Country Air Banquet Hall. She never made it there. Betty's lifeless body was found the next morning near a railroad underpass just outside of Appleton city limits. She had been assaulted, badly beaten and strangled. Investigators were able to collect DNA from her body. In 2001, the DNA was used to rule out any of her family members as suspects. Unfortunately, the technology was not advanced enough to identify the person that was responsible, and the case went cold. In 2019, investigators used the DNA evidence collected back in 1988 to search for possible relatives of the suspect. More recently, investigators were able to narrow down their search to 2 brothers. The one brother cooperated with authorities and gave them his DNA sample. After some testing, he was ruled out. The other brother is Gene Meyer. Investigators obtained a DNA sample from the handle of Meyer's truck which matched with the DNA evidence from 1988. On December 7th of 2022, 66-year-old Jean Meyer of Eatonville, Washington, was arrested and charged with taking Betty Rolf's life. Meyer was a former resident of Valdez, Wisconsin. He moved to Washington after the slaying. Meyer was taken into custody in Pierce County, Washington, and is being held at the Pierce County Jail in Tacoma. He is awaiting extradition to Wisconsin. Betty's granddaughter, Sue Srinka, said that she and her family are in shock following Meyer's arrest. We didn't know if this person was deceased or if this person had other crimes. We just didn't know. "23-year-old Mary Robin Walter lived in Great Bend, Kansas in 1980. She is a wife, mother, and nursing school student. On January 24th of 1980, police were called to Nelson Trailer Park near the airport in Great Bend about a shooting. When they arrived there, they found Mary's body. She had been shot multiple times. Investigators collected evidence and interviewed several people, but obtained no useful information, and the case went cold. In April 2022, Detective Sergeant Adam Hales reopened the investigation. After taking a fresh look at the case, it became evident to him that some of the information had been initially overlooked. In October of 2022, new evidence was discovered, but authorities declined to disclose it. On December 8th of 2022, 68-year-old Stephen Hanks of Burton, Kansas, was arrested in connection with the case. Barton County Sheriff Brian Bellendier announced the arrest at a news conference. At 42 years and 10 months, we believe this is the oldest homicide arrest in the state of Kansas, Bellendier said. Bellendier said Stephen Hanks was investigated as a suspect immediately after the shooting, but the case went cold. He did not disclose a possible motive. I'm proud of my officers for clearing this case. Hopefully, it brings closure for the family and brings justice for the community, Bellendier said. These are long, complicated investigations and are tedious. The credit here goes to my people. Stephen Hanks spent time in prison for another crime. He was arrested in 1981 and charged with assault, battery, robbery, and burglary. He was sentenced in 1983 and discharged in 1993. In response to the break in the case, Mary Robin Walter's niece, Leslie Scragg, issued a statement on behalf of the family saying in part, "We are grateful for the detectives' efforts bringing this man to justice." Robin was truly beautiful inside and out, Scragg said. This world was robbed of her presence, and we will never know how that has shaped our lives. The news is bittersweet. Many of those who knew Robin are gone. Her parents, husband, and a sister will not get to share in our collective relief that Robin's case will have a conclusion. "19-year-old Jennifer Brinkman lived in Marysville, Washington in 1998 with her father and his girlfriend. Jennifer was described as a social individual who actively sought companionship and people. On March 21st of 1998, Jennifer's father and his girlfriend returned home from a vacation in California. They made a gruesome discovery. In Jennifer's bedroom, they found her body. She had been struck in the neck by an axe. The axe was still at the crime scene. Investigators found DNA on the weapon, but limited DNA technology prevented them from finding a match. Looking at Jennifer's electronics, they found that she was active on telephone chat lines and dating sites trying to meet men. Investigators tracked a few of those men down and interviewed them, but were unable to prove any of them were responsible, and the case went cold. In 2020, detectives decided to take another look at the cold case since a lot of advances were made in DNA technology over the years. Parabon Nanolabs then got involved and created a DNA profile using the DNA found on the axe. Using genetic genealogy, they were then able to build a family tree of the suspect and finally identify him. On November 28th of 2022, 52-year-old Jeffrey Paul Primo was arrested and charged with taking Jennifer Brinkman's life by the Marysville Police Department. He was taken to the Snohomish County Jail on a $250,000 bail. The Washington State Patrol Crime Lab said that Primo's genetic material matched the DNA found on the axe. Police Chief Eric Scarpon said in a statement, "Solving this case has been at the top of the priority list of the Marysville Police Department for the past 24+ years. We never gave up or put this on a shelf. It was continuously being investigated with the belief that we would one day be able to bring some level of closure for the family and justice for Jennifer." It was also revealed that Jennifer met Primo on a phone chat line. Primo was one of the men early investigators looked into when they found a letter he had written to Jennifer. Detective Wade Rediger said the letter was cordial in nature, but there were strong indications there had been meetings prior based on the verbiage of the letter. They talked about some personal matters, both on Jennifer's part and on the suspect's part. Despite the letter indicating that the pair had met, Primo denied ever knowing her in his interview with the police. After he was arrested, Primo invoked his constitutional rights and refused to speak. This leaves us without a known motive for the crime. Commander Rob Lamoureux was the first detective at the crime scene back in 1998, and he still leads investigations with the Marysville Police Department to this day. This is what he said about the case. "It's one of those things where it never leaves your thought process because it continues to be unsolved. It wasn't until yesterday, when we made the arrest and I was sitting at home thinking about it, that it really hit that we've got a conclusion to this and we're finally able to put it on a shelf and have some closure not only for us as investigators who have been involved, but the family and the community," he continued. While Jennifer's father passed away in 2013, police were able to tell her mother about the breakthrough in the case. "She was extremely emotional," Lamoureux said. "I think it was an overwhelming emotion for her to finally have an answer." On November 6th of 1980, a body was found burning near I-80 in Wolf Creek Township. After an autopsy, the body could not be identified due to third-degree burns on 70% of his body, but it was determined it was a 16 to 19-year-old man, 115 pounds, 5 foot 8 inches tall. Advancements in technology and funding helped further the investigation in 2007, when a DNA profile was obtained from the victim through evidence collected at the 1980 autopsy. Then, in January of 2019, the victim's DNA was sent to a lab for genetic genealogy screening. A cousin of the victim was identified. Finally, they were able to identify the victim as Edwin Rodriguez, a native of Chicago. Further investigation determined that Nestor Quintanil was the one responsible for taking the life of Edwin. Quintanil was a family friend and the two left Chicago for Florida in the fall of 1980. After they left, Edwin's family never heard from him again. Mercer County District Attorney Peter Acker reviewed the case and said charges would have been filed, but Quintanil passed away in Florida in 2002 at the age of 71. Edwin's remains were returned to his family in Chicago, officially closing the case. Unfortunately, with Quintanil not being alive anymore, Edwin's family will forever have unanswered questions.